the weaknesses of the Bruen standard. Like, what do you think they are? I mean, certainly we've seen arguments that, well, it all really depends on how far out you take this view of historical analog, right?
Well, obviously,
how closely do they have to be related before they're constitutional? I guess.
Well, obviously, our opponents now are going to try to distort the historical, standards because that's all they can really argue now, and so they're going to have to, try to find ways to do that. They're on much weaker ground than they were before. And the Supreme Court, in Heller and McDonald and now in Bruen, pretty much talk about a lot of the historical standards. And so I'm not so concerned that we're going to lose on that. But the other side's going to surely try to manipulate it. There's no doubt about it. And the other thing that I think they're going to try to manipulate a whole lot is that obviously both in the Heller decision and the Bruen decision, reference as well, that there are some laws in sensitive places that they can pass to restrict carrying of firearms in sensitive places. Mm-hmm. And so they're going to try again define the whole country as a sensitive place. And when they try to go overreach on that, I think we're going to be going to be in good shape to win again. But there are some sensitive places that you're not going to be able to carry firearms in, and that's been the case before. And I think we're not going to get to overturn that in Bruen. Bruen didn't go that far in that area. But again, it's a monumental win for us, period. And the other side knows it. And, they're freaking out over it, quite frankly. But the more they freak out over it, the more they try to pass bad laws that don't have passed constitutional muster and don't make sense. And I feel we're getting more and more in the driver's seat with this every day. And so what we started back in 1972 with the Second Amendment Foundation and these legal scholars conferences and getting things published in law review articles, et cetera, has really paid off in spades, but it's taken a significant number of decades to get to where we are.
Yeah, that's certainly true. But so you don't look at something like, for instance, an assault weapons ban case. It seems clear that they're probably going to argue that, because there's historical tradition of regulating dangerous and unusual firearms, that applies to, AR-15s and AK-47s. You don't think that's, or the sensitive places, that we can extend these sensitive places to Times Square because Times Square has these unique set of circumstances that make it, different from your regular public area. You're not concerned that those are going to hold up in court, those sorts of arguments?
Well, on the banning of semi-automatic so-called assault weapons, I think we're going to win. The same thing on magazine capacity. I think we're going to win because those things aren't unusual and they're not overly dangerous. They can't win on that. And making those particular arguments again isn't going to hold up very well because historically, that doesn't make any. It really doesn't make any sense historically, and again, bringing in that something is dangerous or whatever isn't going to sell anymore because that Supreme Court said you got to look at the history and text of the Second Amendment, and that's what's going to that's the tripping point for them, and that's where they're going to fall on their faces.
Okay, so you're not as concerned about.
They will argue it. There's no doubt about it. But I don't think they're going to win on it. If they try to say something like, at certain times because of certain activities, carrying guns in Times Square may not be okay. Like maybe say like New Year's Eve itself. But to say, 24/7, every day of the year, you can't carry a gun, not just in Times Square, but with an X number of block radius around it, that isn't going to work.
Okay. So you're not as concerned about those sorts of arguments, even though you do expect them to be made in court. What is it that you're concerned about then? Maybe legal minimization, where they try to rule that, for instance, this law is unconstitutional as applied, but not make a determination on the constitutionality of the law overall. These sorts of things. Like, there's other ways that you can delay at least certain decisions. Are you concerned about those sorts of tactics?
Well, I think we're going to see things like, some anti-gun judges in the lower courts, timelines to hear your case. They're going to stretch things out so it takes years to get your case heard. Mm-hmm. There are all kinds of things the other side's going to do because they're evil. And they're going to misuse the system any chance they get to do it. But I feel really good about holding them accountable for it, and eventually, over time, day by day, instead of them chipping away at our rights, we're going to put the rights back together again.